Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 113. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for tuning in this Tuesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing? How was your weekend?
I'm doing good. It was a good weekend there. Got a lot of tape watching done. That was always good. Got to watch a couple of hockey games and a basketball game last night and all. So life is good right now. Gearing up now for the Steelers rookie mini camp that'll get started this coming weekend.
Is Vegas still in the hockey playoffs? I've lost
track.
No.
They got knocked out. Yeah.
That's San Jose that knocked them out?
I believe so.
All right. Say that. Well, this is why we're Steelers site, not the.
Once the Penguins got knocked out, it kind of took away from my viewing pleasure, if you will.
Yep, that's how I am too. All right, Dave, we'll jump to it. We'll get a little housekeeping out of the way here. To start, we do want to talk about the winner of the Steelers mock draft contest. Our yearly thing. I know we had a little different format this year. But we thank everybody that submitted. How many submissions did you get, Dave? We had got, I think, a ton of them again.
I think it was over 100.
Wow.
And it the way I did it still made it tough to score, but I was able to get through it. I had to come up with a better way to get to make this easier on our end. But we had two guys finish with identical scores in Alex Moore and Andrew Faltz with 60 each. And they let's see, Alex had 6 correct picks. And let's see, he had 3 of them listed in the right, going in the right round, whereas Andrew had 6, and he had 3 going in the right round. And of course, you got a 10-point bonus for having them in the right round, and 5 points for having the right choosing the right person there. I think the biggest takeaway, and congratulations on both them, Alex Moore. Not only that, Alex Moore, the bonus question was the what was his name?
Charles Omenihu.
Yeah, Omenihu. His actual draft spot, I think, was 161.
Was it? I didn't even look it up. I can look it up.
Yeah, look it up. And Alex had 160 as his guess.
Wow. That's awesome. 161 for a menu. Wow, that's amazing.
And God bless Andrew. He failed to answer the tiebreaker question, but I doubt he would have came as close as Alex did. So congrats to both those guys. One of the biggest takeaways, I think, is a lot of people in this thing obviously didn't have the tight end.
Zach Gentry.
Yeah, Zach Gentry. I think only 2 or 3 people had listed Zach Gentry in their list of 50 names there. That was obviously a tough one. And Deontay
Gray, no one had Derwin
Gray.
No,
someone had there was like 1 or 2 people had Derwin Gray too.
Oh, that's awesome.
So kudos to those people, but neither of the 2 winners, had either one of those 2 guys in there. But I think the biggest other takeaway I got from it was Diontae Johnson. Most people had him as a round selection is like round 6 or 7. I think the highest I saw, maybe 1 or 2 people, I think had Diontae Johnson going in like the 4th or the 5th or something like that. So Diontae Johnson really, obviously snuck up on a lot of people, and nobody had him obviously going where he ultimately went in the 3rd round.
Right. You look at most of the draft projections, they had him as a late-round guy, but credit to Zerline at NFL.com, he pegged him as a 3rd-round pick, and right on the button with that one. And it seems like the way that the league viewed him, they saw him as a late, day 2, early day 3 kind of guy, which he ultimately, was an early 3rd-round pick.
And I don't remember where Gil Brandt. Do you remember where Gil Brandt roughly had him? It'd be fun to go back and look at where guys like Gil Brandt and maybe Kuiper and some of these other guys that released 150 top boards and all. So, I guess overall, that's why probably a lot of people right now view a guy like Deontay Johnson as a reach, I guess, if you will. But, I mean, is it a reach if a guy – I understand the term reach and where all that comes from, but in essence, a guy's spot is where he's drafted, right?
Exactly, and at this point, we're more focused on what he can bring to the table rather than draft slot and selection and was it a reach or not. I do want to segue from that into a little bit of draft talk. Dave, you just wrote the article before we started the podcast today. 2 of the 11 undrafted free agents this team has signed. Post-draft, we know there's signing bonuses, and just to mention this real briefly, Fred Johnson, the guard from Florida, had the biggest signing bonus, which isn't a surprise. I thought he was the biggest name and probably the most draftable candidate of all the UDFAs this team signed. He got a $15,000 signing bonus according to agent Joel Corey. And then a punter from Western Carolina, Ian Berryman, just got a $2,000 signing bonus. So we know 2 of those names, and hopefully we'll get the rest within the next week or so.
Yeah, you'd have to look at that $15,000 signing bonus is probably going to be one of the largest that the Steelers will give out this year as well, too. So definitely a high priority guy when it comes to that, and a guy that they probably had to fight with a few teams over to get. But as you pointed out, right after it was announced, a good-looking player there, a guy that maybe, who knows, maybe this is a guy that can compete for, one of those however many, offensive line spots that the Steelers keep this year. Is it going to be 9? Is it going to be 8? Is it going to be 9? Is it going to be 10? Something like that. But didn't he play mostly left guard at Florida?
I think it was more right guard. He's guard right. He's like RJ Prince, kind of right guard, right tackle, versatile. As far as I know.
Well, definitely a guy that we need to move probably to the front of the class if we haven't already. And once we get into training camp, be interested to hear your reports on him. And then of course Ian Berryman, the punter. Where's he out of? Western
Carolina.
You look at his stats. Now, I obviously haven't dove deep into what he did there, but his overall average, wasn't eye-popping. Now, you don't know when you look at averages and net averages. I think, and I think we're going to talk about this a little bit here when discussing Jordan Berry's season last year. Averages and net averages can be a little bit deceiving. If a guy has to punt on the other side, on the opposition side of the field, that could, depending on how short a field that he's punting on, and he's obviously not trying to kick or punt the football into the end zone, it could affect, his punting average. So at some point, maybe I'll run back through the game books to see how many of Berryman's punts actually came on, the other side of the 50 there.
He's an interesting story. He was a walk-on, had really strong sophomore and junior seasons. I think an injury played into a role in less punts in general. His senior season where the average dipped, but he's had some of the records over there in Western Carolina. And a guy that is still probably going to be best known for, and this is what the Steelers prioritize, is his directional punting and his placement. I saw a tweet from Jim Nagy at the Senior Bowl. He wasn't at the Senior Bowl, Berryman was, but I think just a reference, I said that scouts were calling him about a punter, which is so rare. Usually it's agents trying to talk about their guy and get the notice, but it was scouts asking about Ian Berryman. And so this is a guy that I think is interesting, and we profiled Matthew Wright, the kicker, who's got an interesting backstory, and I'm in the middle of working on an article on Ian Berryman, and we'll profile him. But he's an interesting dude that I think, I wouldn't totally discount him.
Absolutely, especially the way, and we'll go over that here pretty soon, talking about Jordan Berry's. I tried to defend Jordan Berry and thought I did a pretty good job of it a year ago, February, but going back through the stats this year, it's kind of a little bit harder to defend, his overall stats from 2018.
That's where I was going to go. I just heard you crack open a beverage. Was that a beer to talk about Jordan Berry? I got to try to defend this guy, Crack.
Yeah, that's called a Monster Energy drink. The days of cracking over beers are long behind me. Not that I haven't done a few of those.
It just made me laugh. Jordan Berry. All right, here we go. So tell us about Jordan Berry and kind of why were you able to defend them better last year, and what changed in 2018?
Well, I think first of all was the amount of the percentage. I think it was somewhere along the lines of 25% of Berry's punts in 2017 had come on the opposition side of the field, and that of course can affect a punting average in general. There, that was one thing that I tried to hone in on last year, and one thing that did stick out in trying to write about Berry last year was the fact that from of his punts that he had deep in the Steelers' own territory, inside their own 21, obviously weren't all that great. Now, when you look, and here's what I wrote specifically in defensive punters, averages and net averages aren't always a great representation of how a player performed. And I was somewhat able to show why that is in regard to Berry last offseason. That stat study that I did in February last year somewhat helped defend Berry's 2017 gross punting average of 43.2 yards and his net punting average of 39.8 yards, and mainly because 23.4% of his punts came on the opponent's side of the midfield. That defense aside, Berry's 2017 gross punting average of 47.4 on the punts that took place inside the Steelers' own 21-yard line also ranked low league-wide. Now, that's 2017. And I go on to say, while Berry's poor 2017 punting stats could halfway be defended, his 2018 stats really can't be. And you start with only 10 of Berry's 63 total punts in 2018 came with the original line of scrimmage being past midfield. So that's a drop of, about 8%, 9%. Only three of those 10 punts flew inside the opposition's 10-yard line as well. And if you're scoring at home, those 10 punts had an average distance of 33.9 yards past the line of scrimmage, and that average is just 9.3 yards less than his yearly season average of 43.2 yards that I listed in the article. Now, on the 11 punts that Berry had in 2018 that took place inside the Steelers' own 21-yard line, his gross average was 47.9 yards, and 18 other punters in the NFL, according to my study, registered better averages on such punts than he did. And to make matters even worse, and really you can't really fault Berry on this, Berry's net average on those 11 punts inside the Steelers' own 21-yard line last year was a league worst 33.2 yards. And once again, that doesn't reflect, how Danny Smith, that doesn't reflect well on Danny Smith, obviously, who always likes to claim that net punting average is the important stat in that phase of the game. And, the thing to remember last year is that they had that punt against the Los Angeles Chargers that was returned, 73 yards or something for a touchdown. So that obviously will affect things there. Now, one of the few positives that I came away with going through Berry's 2018 punting stats is that only 16 of them, and I think that was a league high percentage-wise, in total were returned, and that was the lowest percentage in the league of the qualified punters. I think that had like 40 or more punts last year. That high percentage is likely the result of Berry having a hang time average last season of 4.41 seconds, according to Pro Football Focus, and only 7 other punters last year had better averages than he did when it came to hang time. Unfortunately, hidden in those low amount of returns for the Steelers and Berry's net average stats is that one of those 16 return punts resulted in that 73-yard touchdown against the Chargers there. So, obviously we don't know what Berry's being told, and as you mentioned, directional punting and plays a large role in what Danny Smith evidently, or most punters really league-wide, try to do. But it appears as though Berry's ability to produce a higher than average punt hang time, along with maybe his directional kicking, is what's been able to keep him, around this long. And as I said, we don't know once again how much he was asked to directional kick, and if he's followed, how closely he followed orders on several of those punts last season, because we only have the raw stats to go on. But when you circle back to earlier this offseason when the Steelers re-signed Berry, I don't think it was a shock that they re-signed him because you need somebody to be in camp and compete. Why not have the incumbent there if you can have him at a cheap price? I think the biggest shocker, if you will, was the fact that he got a 2-year contract and not just a 1-year contract. However, as I like to say, he only received a $750,000 signing bonus as part of that deal, and that's the only guaranteed money that was part of that 2-year contract. So, they got him on the roster now. He obviously, barring anything unforeseen, he should make it to training camp or at least past June 1st. And at that point, he can still very easily lose the job to somebody. And if the Steelers wanted to move on from him, this year, you're only talking about a dead money charge in 2019 and 2020 of $375,000 should he not make the roster and indeed be cut after June 1st there. So, the fact that he signed a 2-year contract really has no bearing on this whatsoever. And as you kind of pointed out, I think recently, 2 Berries enter, 1 Berry might leave.
Or both could leave, theoretically.
Right,
they could be, he's fighting the whole league, not just what they have internally, but what they have externally. Remember, they brought in Zoltan Mesko, what was that, 2015, from New England, I believe. So they've made changes, earlier than 2015, must have been, like I think Barry was here. Anyway, for Barry, he's not a lock by any means. And last year was a worse season than 2017, and, you can classify it as just an okay season with certainly some low points. I think the numbers about his hang time, though, help indicate, the lack of average. I think it's showing that priority they have on the best return is no return, where they rarely allowed a return in general. What did you say? 16, I think, punt returns allowed last year. Is that the number?
Yeah, 16 in total. One was a 70-yarder return for a touchdown. Didn't they have one didn't
KC.
Deshaun? No,
Tyreek Hill. What?
Tampa Bay didn't they have a long one against them? Not for a touchdown, but in the game against I forgot to look this up.
It was the Chiefs game week 2. Tyreek Hill down the right sideline where they just lost the ball and he got inside the 15
Okay, wasn't there another one though? Look back at the stat book in the game, maybe against against Tampa Bay early in the season.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought those were the two because there was a time where they weren't allowing any returns. It was a stretch of like a month where they just didn't give up any return yardage, but they just had a couple of those big chunk ones. Remember the KC one? Barry put it left sideline perfectly, and the Steelers just didn't find the football. I mean, they were all running right past it, and Tyreek Hill got a good return in that first quarter that set up a touchdown and go up 14-0. Then there was a Des King one, which had a bunch of holds, and Kennedy got hurt, and it was kind of a mess.
There was a block in the back.
Yeah, there was like 2 penalties
on
missed.
Brian Allen or something like that. I think it now. Let's see. I'm looking at punt returns.
No punt return, no yards against Tampa Bay.
Okay, then maybe it was the Chiefs game that was the long one there.
I think those were the 2 big ones. Yeah, the Steelers did end up having the worst punt return average, but I think the sample size hurt, and when you have those splash plays. But the coverage has to get better. I mean, there was no debate about that. But yeah, again, I just look at the directional stuff that he's done, and I know I'm cherry picking a little bit, but I remember this tweet I had in late October. I know that by late October he had buried at 4 punts that landed inside the opponent's 5, and those punts resulted in a safety, a pick 6, a fumble for a touchdown, and another safety. So, Barry's able to, I know that maybe the stats don't show it in aggregate, but when you look at some of the specifics, he's able to pin it inside the 5, and that created some big plays for this defense.
Demaryius Thomas was the one that had a 48-yarder.
Demaryius Thomas?
I mean, not Demaryius. The Black Mamba.
What team?
The Chiefs.
Tyreek Hill.
No. He had Tyreek Hill. It's showing here. Thomas had the one for 48 yards.
Oh, is that who? Maybe it wasn't Tyreek Hill. Yeah. It was. Okay. I know what you're talking about. That's the play I was talking about.
What is his name? Not Demaryius Thomas. D'Anthony Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was D'Anthony Thomas. I was thinking it was Hill for some reason, but that was the one where Rosie Nix lost the football. It was, put it on the sideline, and it was for 48 yards to set up a Chiefs score. So those were the 2 big ones that they allowed this year, and those were significant ones. But generally speaking, this team didn't allow returns, and then I think Barry's hang time indicates that, and you're going to sacrifice because he's not an elite guy. This isn't, Sam Cook or Michael Dixon. You're going to sacrifice some of the average for the hang time and not allowing a return. And ideally, that should get you a better net, but the net was poor because of those two big returns.
Exactly. When two of those go a total of, almost 130 yards.
Right. And you only have 16 and generally have 14 left. And, the net was poor, and there's no doubt about that. And Danny Smith's net metric, I think, is 40 yards, which I've argued is probably too low. You got to raise that bar some. But the net was even below 40 this year. So it's certainly some big areas for improvement, and we'll have an open competition with Berryman and Barry and see what happens.
Absolutely.
Okay, what did I want to go from here? What topic did I want to hit? Let's talk about the comp formula, not the comp formula, but I guess kind of the where we are with league-wise right now. Just one little note, you wrote it up yesterday, Dave, talking about this is the end of the compensatory time period, whatever phrase you want to use, where basically teams can now sign free agents and not have them count against next year's comp formula. And I know that the history shows the Steelers don't do that too often, but it is a possibility for Pittsburgh now, and you're probably going to see some guys like Ziggy Ansah and Ndamukong Suh and some other big names free agents start to get signed.
Yeah, I think the deadline might be 4 o'clock today, but after that is when you're probably going to start seeing some of those other guys that remain unsigned out there start inking contracts, because it'll no longer count in the compensatory draft pick formula, if you will. Now, obviously the Steelers have signed Steven Nelson and Dante Moncrief, and I know a lot of people say, well, what about Mark Barron? Well, please keep in mind that Mark Barron was cut by the Rams, so he doesn't go against the compensatory formula because he was technically a street free agent there. So you have two ads in Steven Nelson and Dante Moncrief, and of course they lost 3 of their own unrestricted free agents in Le'Veon Bell, Jesse James, and L.J. Fort. Now, as things stand right now, and obviously none of this is written in stone because of the math involved in the draft pick formula, in the compensatory draft pick formula, but it's believable that the Steelers should right now be in line for a 3rd round compensatory draft pick because of James and Fort. Loss of them should offset the signings of Nelson and Moncrief there. And then that leaves Bell in the large contract that he signed as the outlier there that should produce a 3rd round compensatory pick in 2020. However, I think we need to watch closely here what happens with a guy like L.J. Fort. If he winds up not making the Eagles' 53-man roster, gets cut, or doesn't make it through a good portion of the season on their roster, perhaps that could put a dent into, the Steelers, what they might receive as far as the draft pick goes. But Fort signed a kind of a middle of the line contract there. One would think that he should be safe, but I don't want it to come back and say, well, Dave, you said they're going to get a 3rd round compensatory pick and they didn't. What happened? Well, I think everybody just needs to keep a close eye on L.J. Fort with the Eagles and just root for L.J. Fort to make their 53-man roster, and let's go from there. Now, this is a time of year, I think, once you get past the compensatory formula date, that people start saying, well, look at all these unrestricted free agents out there that the Steelers can possibly sign. Well, I'm not going to say that's obviously not going to happen. Now, Alex and I have been talking quite a bit. Man, it sure would be nice to be able to see this team sign a veteran kind of blocking tight end for a minimum. If the Steelers do go out and sign them, a veteran unrestricted free agent at this point, you can bet for sure it's going to be damn near at the minimum or right close to it. And when you look back over history of signings, say from March 1st of any given year until the middle of July 16th, which is, of course, just a couple weeks before training camp opens every year, the Steelers don't have a long history, a long list of names that they have signed when it comes to unrestricted free agents that were on the market at the time. Now, this list that I built obviously does not include undrafted rookie free agents, those types. And most of these guys that you see in this list, a few names you might recognize, a few of these guys you won't recognize because not, while they did sign, they didn't make it, to the 53-man roster that year. So there are, of course, kind of outliers going all the way back to 2000. Brent Alexander might be one of the bigger names. Obviously, Tommy Maddox back in 2001 was signed on June the 12th of 2001, got 2 years, almost $1 million, and he obviously stuck. Charlie Batch back in 2002, his first year, signed a 1-year, $525,000 contract, and he, of course, stuck. Willie Williams, who had already previously been with the team, came back and signed a 3-year contract with the Steelers. Or actually, I think it was maybe a 1 year. I might have it listed as 3 years. It's probably a 1 year contract. Probably an error on my part there. A 1 year contract for $421,000. So a lot of these names on this list that you're seeing are 1 year minimum salary guys. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying that they're not going to go out and get anybody here, but if you got your sights set on a Trey Boston or Eric Berry or somebody of significance here, you better temper those expectations.
In recent history shows some very forgettable names that have signed. Ryan Mallett, Bryce Harris. Remember Bryce Harris getting cut? Couldn't pass the conditioning test this past year.
Oh, yeah. Didn't they have an injury? Well, that was kind of precipitated because of Hawkins. A lot of and that's another thing you got to look at. How many of these guys were signed into June because of injuries or whatnot, All
right, yeah. You got Terrell Watson, Damian Stafford, remember, retired right before camp started. Guy Wimper, I guess, would be the most significant veteran free agent that had some NFL experience, not including David Johnson, who circled back to the Steelers in 2016. But Guy Wimper signed in 2013, and that was just awful. That didn't go well at all. Sean McDonald would be another one back in 2009. But yeah, really, you have to go back to Colbert's first year on scene of him making any sort of real significant money moves. It's funny, the highest free agency signed after basically after March, we're in 2000. You think with a salary cap it'd be today, but it was Brent Alexander and our man Gabe Northern, who was the person that I didn't know existed until you told me about him yesterday.
Yeah, I had to go back and look that one up myself there. And he obviously, I think his first 4 years had played with Buffalo, and was supposed to come in and compete for, I think, an outside linebacker job, and didn't make the final 53.
Yeah, I got cut. I think it was Clark Hagan's the surprise. Yeah, you had me down a rabbit hole yesterday. I was researching Gabe Northern and reading about Danny Farmer, the 4th-round pick, getting cut out of camp. They had some bad 4th-round receivers. Fred Gibson, Danny Farmer getting cut straight out of camp. The Steelers had Hank Fraley as an undrafted free agent in 2000.
Boy, that sure
Hank
rings
Fraley,
a bell.
120
out
starts.
of Pitt, right?
Robert Morris.
Oh, Robert Morris,
yeah, local
okay.
kid, yeah. 120 starts he had, I think, with the Eagles, and they tried to put him on the practice squad, and Eagles claimed him, and dude had a great career. But yeah, Hank Fraley was a short-time Steeler at least. Yeah, you had Rob Baronis in 04, Kevin Barlow, Willie Williams, as you mentioned. Another Western Carolina guy. You talk about Ian Berryman, Western Carolina Catamounts. Willie Williams, one of the first guys from Western Carolina to break into the NFL. But yeah, the history of these names here are pretty small. So as much as I would love to see Lee Smith come in, I'm certainly not going to hold my breath about it.
Absolutely. Just keep your fingers crossed that you never know what's going to happen, and maybe maybe closer to the start of the season if a guy gets cut.
Right. Do we know where they're at cap space wise?
Yes, we do. As of this morning, they have a little over $4.8 million in available cap space. Now, remember, a little over $3 million of that's going to go still towards signing your draft picks and the remainder of your undrafted free agents. That some of that money is going to be allocated to that. So, look, they can obviously, if you got a guy signed to a minimum salary benefit contract because of the reduced cap hit and all like that, you could still afford a couple of those guys.
But nothing really above that.
Right. You're not gonna, anything that's gonna move the needle. Let's say $1 million. That's just not gonna happen.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll see what happens. Again, not expecting a whole lot there, but there's still a ton of good names on the market. So maybe not for Pittsburgh, but we'll see what the rest of the North does. If someone else makes an aggressive move to sign somebody, that'll be at least notable. To switch now to the rookies, Dave, I've been watching a lot of the undrafted guys, and you've circled back and watched rewatching different aspects of some of the players this team did select in the top 7 rounds. You've done a real deep dive into Benny Snell and his blocking, and I got to say it's an aspect of his game we probably don't talk about very much. I'm glad you looked at it, and there's some impressive tape out there.
Yeah, I think there is definitely there. A year ago we were talking about Jaylen Samuels and thinking, man, we got to take a deep dive into his tape because there's just not a lot of him in pass protection there. And obviously when it comes to not only Steelers running backs but running backs around the league, if they can't pass protect, it's hard to get them on the field.
Yep.
And we kind of saw that during the rookie season of James Conner while given a chance. I think it was the game against the Jack. Wasn't that the 5 INT pick? Or five INT of game.
Blew the protection on the first pick.
Yeah. Right. And we didn't see him too much after that. I think that was week 5 or so, like that. Now, obviously, James Conner's gotten better at that aspect of his game there. And then you circle back to last year with Jaylen Samuels. I thought I guess I don't remember exactly how many instances there was, but he almost was forced into the role anyway because obviously he didn't have Le'Veon Bell, and James Conner went down with that high ankle sprain later in the season, so you really had it was him or Stephen Ridley there, and overall with the ball coming out of Roethlisberger's hands quickly most of the season anyway, it wasn't that big of a focal point. But of course with Benny Snell, and as much as he played there at Kentucky, there's quite a bit of tape to go through with him in pass protection, and I wanted to focus more on the positives than I did on the negatives. Now, let me preface this by saying there were some bad pass pros by Benny Snell, during his career at Kentucky, but they were kind of few and far between. By my run through about five games or so, but there was a lot of good as well too. He's got the want to, and I think that's a huge aspect of it. If you got the want to go in there against some of these linebackers and looping defensive ends and blitzing safeties or corners or whatnot, that means a lot to me. And there's definitely that sticks out right from the get go. As far as his recognition goes. Obviously not knowing the exact play and it makes it tough, but it looked like on the surface that he has a fairly good recognition of who he's supposed to get on certain blitzes and all like that. And there's a few of them where he gets guys coming right up up the middle. And as we always like to say, one aspect when it comes to running backs and pass protection is you want to see them eat up some grass, and that means at least moving forward towards the guy and not wait to catch him, and square up and deliver the blow, and not only that, be successful on it. And I think the Mississippi State's a good from last year has quite a few of those instances in there that made me feel comfortable about his pass protection skills. Now, also there's enough, especially I think in the game against Georgia last year, as far as run blocking goes. This is a guy that on jet sweeps or quarterback keepers or things along those lines, which hopefully we don't have to worry too much about Ben Roethlisberger and quarterback keepers moving forward. But he does get out there in space. He's not afraid to get physical with those linebackers and get a body on them. So overall, while not a real extensive dive into Benny Snell's pass protection and blocking overall, I came away impressed, and I think it kind of backs up. I circled back to what Pro Football Focus wrote about him in their draft guide, especially when it comes to 2018 season. He posted a nice pass protection grade with them. Probably one of the better ones when it came to the running backs that they had profiled in that draft guide when it came to pass protection there. So I think my quick dive through the tape backed that up a little bit there. And now, of course, it'll be interesting to see when we get into training camp and they get into that first backs on backers drill, which obviously is heavily slanted toward the defense there. I would expect those initial reports from you to come out positive when it comes to Snell. And there's instances of him lowering his head and and making the mistakes that you generally see when it comes to running backs. But once again, the want to was there, and for the most part, I like what I saw. And obviously, the sooner that he can iron out some of those details there, the sooner it is that he'll be able to get on the field and not only the technique wise, but knowing who to get and where to get them at.
You'll find out pretty quickly. Third day of training camp, first day when the pads come on, it's backs versus backers. They do it twice each year, that third day, and then the Friday Night Lights practice. So you'll find out pretty quickly, who's up for that task or not. But it seems like Snell is going to be capable. And again, it's a tough drill, but you just kind of see the 1-2, and you see some guys that are capable and can be groomed to become really good pass protectors. Have you looked at his hands at all? Is that going to be another maybe part that you do? Because that's the other aspect we got to probably learn more about with Benny Snell, or his hands.
Yeah, and I tell you, I haven't looked extensively at that, but I do remember coming across a few plays of his where he did catch the ball out of the backfield, and I think one was a bad throw, and he corralled that in. My first thought was, oh, okay, that was he's got some bad ball catching ability. Now that was just one play, mind you, but you obviously don't see a lot of them running wheels past. They're kind of the typical flare outs or the wide receiver or the quick running back screens or stuff like that. But nothing stuck out to me that said, raised my eyebrows and said that was a negative there. Now everything that I just said when it came to pass protection and a little bit about pass receiving, does that? And I know you didn't take that deep a dive ahead of the draft, but I mean, you were, of course, the one that was all over Benny Snell right from the get-go. Does a lot of that add up into him being what you thought might be a well-rounded running back in kind of the limited views that you had of him?
It does. I don't think you get to stay on the field the way that he did and be the centerpiece of that offense without being able to do a little bit of everything. And with his hands, again, I thought Eddie Faulkner made a great point that I hadn't even considered until he mentioned it about Snell getting so much work out of the Wildcat, where you have to have really good hands to be able to take that snap. If you have poor hands, they're probably not going to trust you to do that. And they use the Wildcat to help close out games, to be a change of pace, to give a different element. So his ability to catch the football, you're not going to see a lot of receptions. I think 30 receptions in his college career, whatever the number is. It's a low number, but when you look at him out of the Wildcat, that is a guy that probably has good hands. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll see pass protection. It's always tough to gauge how guys, transition, but I think he'll be more advanced than where most rookie running backs are at. And I think his hands are going to surprise some people that he can make some plays at. Not that he's going to be this huge threat, but he can catch the flare, the check down, and make some plays. And get him in space, too. Let's see Benny Snell in space on a little swing route and maybe truck a linebacker.
Yeah, and there's one thing that he showed. He can bounce runs outside, and once he does get outside, if he's got some one-on-one situations with defenders, he can make a miss. Obviously, as we already went through with some the previous breakdowns there, he's not a guy that's going to run away from a lot of people there. Probably not going to be a huge, as big of an explosive play guy running the football as, say, James Conner was that we saw last year. But, I mean, he's got the ability to break some long runs and definitely some 10-yard runs there. And, one would think where we're at right now with him going through the evaluation process is that at some point during his rookie season, he should find himself in this mix somehow, some way of some sort of running back by committee.
Yeah, that's how the team's probably going to operate this year, where it's going to be more split up than it has in the past. And I know a lot of people are making a ton out of that, saying, wow, the Steelers are running by committee now. This is great. We didn't think they'd do that. But it was just they don't have Le'Veon Bell. They don't have Le'Veon Bell to be that three-down guy. I mean, Connor is capable of that, but with his injury history and, not knowing that he's not quite at that Le'Veon Bell type elite level, yeah, you're going to run by committee. So it's not a surprise, and they're going to, these guys have different skill sets. Samuels has a fairly different skill set than James Conner. Now Conner and Snell are fairly similar guys, but that's okay to have two of the same guy on the team. So, yeah, I'm sure, like I said before, Snell's going to play either just by that committee aspect and getting a little bit of niche work, or whenever an injury happens to Conner or Samuels, that's going to elevate Snell to the number 2 spot.
Absolutely.
A new topic, or new article that you wrote the other day, Dave, talking about Devin Bush and his Rookie of the Year odds. According to our friends at my book, he got pretty good odds this year. And I think, honestly, just my opinion, if you want to pick somebody for Rookie of the Year, and we know that kind of how this award works, and it's tackle based partially, and linebackers obviously have a better chance because they're going to get to make all the tackles and all the plays. I think you got to go with one of the two Devins. I think you got to go either Devin White or Devin Bush for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a bad bet if you're into if you like to do that. Now, obviously, if you go back to just last season with Darius Leonard and the Colts,
yep.
He ended up being the AP defensive rookie player of the year. Now he was on the field right away, and that obviously means a lot when it comes to winning this award for a defensive player. Well, really, any rookie overall. The sooner they can get on the field, the better. Now, how quickly Devin Bush can get. Look, you go back to T.J. Watt a couple of years ago. The early reports, I think even starting right at rookie minicamp, boy, how quickly this guy's picking the defense up and all. And you don't, obviously you still, I think, had James Harrison there at the time there, and you're thinking, okay, how much is this hyperbole here? Yeah, I bet they say that. I mean, I remember Arthur Moat saying, wow, that T.J. Watt's really picking this stuff up quickly and all. Well, you fast forward into the season, and T.J. Watt was on the field right out of the chute there. So, when you hear all the stuff out of the mouths of Colbert and Mike Tomlin and the coaches at Michigan and all like that, this talking about Devin Bush, this is a guy that is perceived as having a good football IQ, a guy that should be able to pick things up quickly. Now, you do have Mark Barron that you signed, but I mean, obviously, the sooner that you can get Devin Bush on the field, the better. So I guess the question becomes, and we're way away from this at this point, obviously, is do you like his chances of at least getting on the field, maybe in, 15, 20 plays, some packages or whatnot for Devin Bush right out of chute during his rookie season?
I think there's a good chance of that. I'm just trying to figure out and visualize exactly how that's going to look. I mean, we can talk about, Devin Bush playing in sub-package, and, theoretically it works because he's an athlete and he's going to make plays and he can cover, and that's what you drafted him for, but what package exactly is he going to work in? Is he going to work in the dime, where there's only one inside linebacker? Probably not, because you need a guy making the calls. Is he going to work in the nickel, 2-4-5 nickel? I'm just trying to think exactly how they're going to make him work in a sub-package role.
You go back to the last time the Steelers had a rookie defensive player of the year was way back in 2001 with Kendrell Bell. And if you remember at that time, or maybe you don't, the team had signed Mike Jones as a free agent, from the Rams. And it's in other words, this has kind of got the same kind of. Didn't Mike Jones come from the Rams after that?
Yeah, the Super Bowl saving tackle.
Right. There, and they signed him, and then they go out and they drafted Kendrell Bell, I think, in the second round that year. And then Kendrell Bell played so good during that preseason there that the Steelers said, "The heck with it, we're going to go ahead and let him be the guy there." And Bell obviously, now he didn't log a lot of total tackles that year, and I think he finished way on down the league leaders when it came to total tackles, but he did have the 9 sacks that year and made a few other plays, and he went on to win the Rookie of the Year award that year. So if you are one of those ones that like to bet on such stuff, 18-1 odds, if you think you like the chances of Devin Bush and maybe getting on the field right away, like Alex said, I think you have to look at both of these linebackers in Devin White and Devin Bush as kind of the guys that maybe be worth putting a C note on.
Right, and I think I would go Devin White first. I think he's going to get on the field right away. I mean, I don't know Tampa's depth chart too in depth, but I'm pretty sure there's a huge spot there left by Quan Alexander. So I think I would go Devin White, Devin Bush, and then if I wanted to sleeper, I'd go Brian Burns as the third candidate, as the guy that I think could create a lot of sacks out in Carolina.
And then obviously, leading the list as far as the low odds, Nick Bosa and Josh Allen have the lowest odds. They're the favorites at this time. Quinnen Williams, then Cleveland Farrell, and then Devin White, Ed Oliver, and a guy like Devin Bush there. So It's definitely going to be something to watch when it comes to Bush. And, the deeper that you get into his tape, man, you go back to, I don't know if we just mentioned this the other day, the play that Merrill Hodge highlighted on his Twitter feed there, the game against, who was it, Nebraska there. It really shows the sideline-to-sideline ability that Bush had. And then you go back to the late in the first half of that game against Ohio State last year on that goal line, swing out pass to Mike Weber. And I think if you go back to the Tulsa game last year as well, too, was a similar type play where Bush had to go over the top of a tight end trying to block him to prevent kind of a swing pass from getting in the end zone there. This guy's got the speed to go sideline to sideline, and you can't teach that stuff. And when you go back to continually talking about how today's game is mimicking the college game and it's played inside of a 20-yard box and it's all horizontal. Look, the more tape you watch on, the more you can definitely understand why the Steelers traded up to get Devin Bush.
Absolutely. And again, looking at the lack of talent behind him, if not Devin Bush, then who? And I really don't have a good answer to that question. But speaking of looking at the tapes in depth and talking about the inside linebacker position, I'm starting, I haven't finished it yet, but I've done a really good deep dive into Vince Williams' tape from this season and just going through every single snap that he logged last year. And I got to say, again, I know everyone wants to look at Mark Barron and Devin Bush, and understandably so, but don't discount Vince Williams. Don't push him off the starting lineup just yet, because this dude is as solid as they come. And yes, he's not providing that splash and coverage that certainly Devin Bush can hopefully do. But you talk about a guy with his run fits, his tackling, always being in the right position, shoulders always square, finding the football, and doing his job in coverage too. Not that he's going to make any spectacular plays, but carrying guys down the seam, finding the football, driving on the football underneath. This dude is as solid as they come, and you consider the trust that they have in him and his defensive play calling. I mean, I just to reiterate the point, I mean, this is a guy that is not going to come off the field easily.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody can attack running backs like he can in the backfield there. Now, obviously, one of the highlights of Bush, or one of the strengths of Bush coming out of Michigan, was his ability to get pressure or sack or something in his blitzes as well too. And then we just talked about Kendrell Bell, and one of the things that he did extremely well during his rookie season was getting after the quarterback as well too. And the Steelers, and I think there was a stat by, was it Pro Football Focus yesterday that floated around on the Twitter machine about the times that the Steelers sent an inside linebacker?
Yeah, they were talking about some coverage rates. I didn't read it. I don't remember it, but they were talking about some of the zone blitzes that they've done.
Right. So, I mean, look, Vince is going to be hard to get off the field for sure.
Yeah. So I'll have something on that and kind of looking at what he can improve on too, because there's always a couple things to improve on. But I just going back through the tape, just kind of really makes you appreciate. And I've always been a Vince Williams fan, but really makes you appreciate, how solid and steady his game is. Dave, let's talk about, close to the end of the show here, my roster prediction that I had. I know you mentioned your roster prediction on the last show, on, what was that, Friday. And for my roster, obviously all these are going to be fairly similar, but we'll run through it and kind of get your thoughts on what you agree with, what you don't agree with. And I think we're similar with quarterbacks, running backs, and fullbacks. There's really, I think everyone's roster is going to be the same there unless you throw on a fourth running back for some reason. But receiver is where it gets interesting at. I only have them keeping 5: Juju, Moncrief, Washington, Switzer, and then Deontay Johnson. I'm leaving Eli Rogers off that list just because it feels a little redundant. Do you need a slot receiver? Well, you got Switzer and Johnson and Juju, and Moncrief can play the slot. Return game, you got Switzer and Deontay Johnson. I just don't know exactly where Eli Rogers fits in that group of receivers.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no wrong answer there, I don't think. No right or wrong answer there. I think the question comes down to 5 or 6, and obviously the health of those guys between now and the start of the regular season there. But yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't. I think I said going through mine, it wouldn't. Either or with Ryan or Eli wouldn't surprise me. Although I think I had both being kept 6 in total on mine. I'm not going to be shocked right now, how this thing plays out, other than maybe a guy like Griffey or Jones or one of these other guys making it. And you would think that those guys made it, maybe unfortunately because of an injury.
Or just elite special teams. There is no great special teamer at the receiver room outside of the return game, which is obviously a very important part. But in terms of a coverage guy, I don't look at any of those receivers, those 6 that we just mentioned, as being coverage guys, gunners and guys on the kick return game. So if there's an opening there for Griffey or Jones, that's kind of how they were billed as good special teamers. But that's why I went 5, just to leave Eli off. Now I would have had Eli on the roster and kept 6 had I not gotten a little cute with a tight end spot. I just really feel like this team's going to make a move at tight end with a free agent or a trade or doing something, whether it's now or August or after cutdowns. I'm not sure, but I had him with 4 tight ends, which I know is heavy. But just Zach Gentry scares me, and I didn't love that pick. And with McDonald's health issues, I think you want to add some extra tight end help.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do add that body. And if they do, then obviously your scenario becomes more plausible, if you will. So how much special teams can Gentry play, I don't know. That's another aspect.
But the tight end's not – number 3 tight end's ideally not playing a lot of special teams anyway.
Sure, but I mean, if you're going to have him on the wing, though, you want to make sure you can get the job done,
For a field goal team?
Or for anything, for any aspect of him. Normally, generally, you see these number 3 tight ends play maybe a little bit of special teams that they're going to dress.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that wing. I mean, they've had, I think, Hayward there before. I think they've had a tight end. I mean, and Gentry at 6'8" with his length probably fits well as the wing on the field goal kick team. But that's probably going to be it. I know that they've done a little bit on the punt coverage team, being the wing on the punt team. Matt Spaeth has done it before, but you don't want those guys, running down those punts and being kind of athletically limited. But to move to the offensive lineman to finish up the offense, and I'm already kind of going back and forth on it. You have your top 7, which are going to be locks, including Finney, Filer, Core4. I went different with the last 2 spots. I think they will keep 9. But I did go slightly different here. I went Patrick Morris as my interior guy. And then I think you got to have a UDFA make the team. I went Fred Johnson, and you saw the signing bonus that he got indicates that this team liked him. I thought there was a draftable grade on Fred Johnson and a guy that has guard tackle versatility.
So you have Hawkins finally leaving.
Yeah, and I could switch out Hawkins and Fred Johnson. That might make more sense. But the thing with Hawkins, it's not a talent issue. It's just, has he been healthy? And are you available? Are you going to get the reps? I know he's had probably some bad luck, and it's not that he's injury prone. I'm not saying that. But if you're just not healthy and, you just got to get through a whole camp. He's done it once in 3 seasons. So it's kind of hard to put that guy on the list right now.
Yeah, and assuming all these guys stay healthy, knock on wood, it's going to be interesting to see these final couple of spots because, as you said, Pouncey, DeCastro, Foster, Villanueva, Finney, Matt Filer, and Core4, we expect at least those 7 to be there. Mm-hmm. And then, once again, are you going to keep 8? You're going to keep 9? They had Zach Banner. They carried him all last season, as an extra tackle. But really, I don't know if he only dressed like 1 game or something like that. Obviously didn't see any snaps, didn't get any playing time. So yeah, definitely some playing around to do with the final spot or 2. And you wouldn't think they're going to keep 10, but stranger things have happened.
8 or 9. I think 9 is going to be the magic number because there is a lot of good competition. You got Hawkins, you got Banner, R.J. Prince. Don't forget about R.J. Prince, Derwin Gray, the 7th round pick. So you're going to have a lot of guys fighting for spots. But that's good. Cream rises to the top and make that room better and the competition a lot more intense. For the defensive line, standard 6. Is there even a debate to be had? I mean, as much as we might not like Daniel McCullers, he did improve, and I can't see anyone pushing him.
I wouldn't bet my house on the 6, but that would be the favorite 6 that I have right now. I mean, it'll be interesting to see just how versatile Bugs can be, and if any of these Casey Sales or any of these other guys can make a push. I mean, Tyson Alulu, you know what you have on him, but can you upgrade that any? It'd be interesting to see there. So, yeah, I don't blame you for going. I guess you'd consider that the chalk with those 6. And 6 is a number that they've seemingly kept forever when it comes to defensive line.
Did profile nose tackle Chris Nelson, one of the UDFAs today. A big body in the middle, but not someone I see making a push for the 53. I think practice squad's going to be probably his best to start with, but struggles against double teams and combo blocks. That's going to be, he's got to get a stronger base and a wider base, I think. But profile on Chris Nelson went up this morning. For inside linebackers, this is where linebacker debate gets interesting. I'm going with 4, Vince Barron, Bush and Dirty Red. I'm cutting Gilbert the third here, and it came down to Gilbert the third versus Sutton Smith. I just thought Sutton Smith, I think his motor, and I think, again, having that pass rush background is going to help him out on special teams more. So with the outside backers, I'm going with Bud, Watt, Chick, Adeniyi, and Sutton Smith. So I'm keeping 9 total, and Gilbert gets the axe.
Yeah, if you can find, 10, like I said, when I put mine together the first time, I think I had 10, and I said, man, you stare at that 10 total linebackers, and not everybody's going to dress. Where could you use, and can player X make the practice squad, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, look, I don't hate you for that. And Tyler Matakavich, because of his special teams ability, is going to be a tough out.
Exactly. With corner, I'm cutting Artie Burns. I know apparently I'm alone on cutting Artie Burns here. I feel like we'd all be in agreement on that, but I know Matthew had his roster prediction go up this morning, and he's keeping him too. So I don't know what Artie Burns is paying you guys, but I got Hayden, Nelson, Hilton, Sutton, and Justin Lane. I mean, Brian Allen's off scholarship, and Artie is long off scholarship too.
Yeah, look, I mean, it won't be a shock if Artie Burns doesn't make it, but to be determined. I'll my bet is for him right now until we get further into preseason or whatnot. But I tell you, if they keep him into training, if they keep him on into training camp and on getting into that preseason, I try to play him as much as I can.
I just don't know what you need to see from him, because he might have a good preseason. He's probably going to have a good camp because he's always had good camps. But it's just like, that we've been down this road before, and there's been some false hope with Artie Burns.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll circle back to he can give you a little something on special teams, and he does have the experience. And how many? I guess too. When's the last time you saw a rookie first round, or not a rookie, but a former first round pick not play out his entire contract?
That'd probably be the biggest reason to keep Burns, just the history.
Just the history. Yeah. But as we've seen time and time again, and in fact, when it came to history, we said, man, when was the last time back when the Steelers drafted Artie Burns in the first round? Boy, you have to go back to 19 whatever it was.
Chad Scott.
The last time the Steelers drafted a cornerback in the first round. Well, he broke that string, so maybe he'll break that string of being a first rounder, not to play out his rookie. Honestly, that's a lot where my decision on keeping him is rooted. There is in the history.
Yeah, just kind of that sunk cost investment. We've invested so much in him. We'll let it play out one more year. This team's got a lot of former receivers at cornerback. You got Justin Lane, Brian Allen, Herb Waters. These are all receivers turned corner, so hopefully one of these dudes can pick off some passes, because otherwise they're going to have to come up with a new plan, stop taking receivers that made the switch. With safety, a little different than what you had too. Sean Davis, Terrell Edmonds, Marcus Allen, those guys feel like locks, and then I went different for the last two. I'm not cutting Jordan Dangerfield. I'm going to show him the respect that he deserves, and I put just a random guy on there just to make it a little interesting. Jack Tocho, AF player. You could put Cameron Kelly too. But Dangerfield, he's your backup free safety, right? It's hard to see them cutting Dangerfield unless they're making some other big move.
Doesn't he mostly play down in the box, Dangerfield?
He does, but he's played free safety. Like when Sean Davis has gone out, Dangerfield has come in. And I know that Dangerfield definitely profiles as a box strong safety, but watch when Davis has come out, which is far and few between. But when he's been missing, Dangerfield's come in. So I think he's the backup free safety. Because who else is it going to be? Marcus Allen? He's a box guy, right?
Right, exactly. So. Yeah, that's true there. And look, I've tried to write Dangerfield off for the last 2 years, and at least if Dangerfield's agent sees this, he'll be happy, because he's always taken issue with the little things that we write here and there over the years on Jordan Dangerfield. So yeah, I don't blame you for giving Dangerfield some respect. Ha.
In the special list, I'm keeping it chalk for now with Boswell, Berry, and then, of course, Kennedy. We'll see what happens with Boz and Berry, but until the other guys come in and start showing something, it's hard to put Berryman or Matthew Wright or whoever else you want to on the 53 for the practice squad.
What? You keeping a kicker on the practice squad?
I'm keeping a kicker on the practice squad. It's smart. It's smart, Dave. You got to have that. If you want to create that competition and have those guys pushing each other, and I think it just might be good for Boz just to have somebody to talk to that isn't Danny Smith. Like, you can talk to coaches and that's one thing, but to talk to a player and to kind of have those informal conversations, I think that's helpful actually for Boswell. So yeah, and you got because you have 11, because you can keep Scotty, as Colbert calls him, Christian Scotland Williamson as your exempt player. Yeah, I'm going to keep a kicker.
All right.
Hey, if it helps Boswell, isn't it worth it?
Yeah.
Isn't it worth it more than, say, just keeping another corner who's not going to help you potentially on game day, kind of in an indirect sort of way?
Yeah, I'm just giving you a hard time. I didn't expect to see I think it's smart.
I think I'm that pointing at my head meme dude right now.
Here's the thing. So obviously we can go through each of our 53-man roster predictions, and obviously a lot of this is going to be chalk as well too. When the dust finally settles, there will be about 5 names probably on each of our lists that didn't make it, and we'll look back and say, wow,
Sure.
how did that happen there? But yeah, it's a good start there, and I think it lets you know how much this roster is going to change this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably end up doing one right before camp starts, and who knows, it probably look different then, and then certainly once camp begins, you throw this stuff out the window. But just fun to do, and Matthew's got his up today. I stick that to the top, which I think he's got a couple small changes, too, from what we've done. So check out Matthew's 53-man roster prediction, and I think that's all the topics I had, Dave. Anything else you wanted to discuss today?
Do you got any updates on some of these tryout guys? Any of these tryout guys look like they have a chance here?
I just listed the names. I haven't watched anyone's tape because I'm going to wait for the list to come in, and then I'll do a short article. Not really watching tape, but just kind of going through the bio on these guys. We know, I think, 7 names right now. Devlin Hodges from Sanford. Now, he's an interesting guy. He set all of the FCS records. He broke Steve McNair's record for passing yards. Had a great career for Sanford, and I know they had a receiver down there. They were looking at Kelvin McKnight. So Hodges is a guy. Could he beat out Roback? We'll see. Not that he's going to make the team, but he's got a big pedigree. Carden Johnson from James Madison, part of the million back that the JMU had. Steve McShane from Western Illinois, a really hard-working kid. Milan Richard, from Clemson. His dad, or his uncle, I think, is Herschel Walker. A couple of Canadians, offensive linemen. Drew, it's a last name, honestly, I can't pronounce, and Jesse Given from Waterloo. And then I think you spotted Dwayne Wallace from Kansas, who I think started at guard this past year for the Jayhawks. So you should get about 15 names minimum of tryout guys coming in. Again, we know, I think, 7 right now, but I haven't heard too much lately.
From Waterloo. Do you remember that? You don't remember that song from ABBA, do you?
Have I ever, whenever you ask me, do I remember, have I ever responded with yes? Unless it's Dancing Queen, you got the wrong.
I give you Dancing Queen, yeah. And what about Take a Chance on Me?
Yeah, all right, yeah. I like her. Yeah, isn't she in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
ABBA's a group.
It's a group?
Yeah, ABBA's a group.
Right.
Her.
Well, I had a good run. About 4 seconds.
And then there's the old one I used to like to break out when Fernando, what was his last name? Fernando, the center.
Oh, Velasco.
Yeah. They had ABBA had a song called Fernando that I always used to post that video anytime his name would come up there. Hey, I'm impressed. You know a little bit about even though ABBA's not a girl, but at least
well, the lead singer was a woman.
No,
right?
there's two girls and 2 guys. They were
really?
Swedish. Yeah.
All right.
Swedish.
Well, they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right?
That I don't,
because I know it was controversial. People were wondering why they were in the Rock and Roll.
Yeah, the whole thing. Man, the Rock. Don't get me started on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, man. We're
only an hour into this thing. We have plenty of time for you to rant away.
Yeah, it's become a shamockery. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Far as I don't, I watch it on HBO. And in fact, the recent inductions just happened there. I'll watch it just to see the musical performances. But as far as the way they decide on who gets in and who isn't in, and those kind of things really kind of irritate me. But that's a topic for the post Steelers Depot Dave Bryan podcast down the road there. But look, we got some. Americana or some music talk mixed in somewhere in there. I guess now because we're stumbling along, we should get into some reader emails here, right?
I think we're out of topic.
I don't think people tune in to hear us talk about reminiscing about ABBA. Let's see. Jonathan Mason writes in, Alex and Dave, it seems that most of the national draft experts like Justin Lane a lot were high on him ahead of the draft. Now they are saying he's the Steelers' best draft pick based on where they got him. Alex, I know you didn't love the pick at the time, but have you changed your mind now? And if so, what do you like most about his potential? Thanks, Jonathan.
I'll take this one first. No, I like the value because I thought he was going to be a mid-second round guy. So getting him mid-third, I think when when they framed the Justin Lane pick, I think obviously people like his tape, like the upside, but they like where the Steelers got him. And I certainly am in that latter camp. I think the value was excellent. I'm not going to complain about that one bit. And yeah, there's upside with him. He's got ball skills. He tracks the football well. Obviously, the size and length is attractive for the way the NFL goes and some of the big receivers you're going to have to face. I mean, there's things there, but again, I worry about some average long speed, bit of a build-up guy, some hip tightness, and then just the fact of, when have the Steelers ever developed a corner? I mean, to take these lumps of clay and they exit as lumps of clay, and you just feel like, you haven't had the group. Now, obviously, some new guys coming in, Tom Bradley in the second year, Terrell Austin his first year. You can't pin that on those names, but the history isn't encouraging, to say the least. So, I know that McShay and Zierlein like the pick, and I like the value here and his upside. I'm not going to pretend this is a terrible pick that has no chance. That's certainly not true at all, but there's just some baseline concerns and some history that I think is working against him.
Do you get the feeling now that Tom Bradley just chases down footballs and gets water?
What?
Tom Bradley, do you think he, in other words, has his role kind of diminished? I get the feeling now that Austin's in control of that room now.
It felt like it, but I know they've been coy about how that room's going to work. But yeah, it felt like during the pro day circuit, I saw a lot of Terrell Austin. I didn't see a lot of Tom Bradley. Yeah. A little of Tom Bradley, but not much.
You saw Austin having like 5 different pro days that he was easy to pick out, running through the drills and all. It just I I think Austin even said during his post-draft press conference talking about Lane that I'm he made a reference like I'm the defensive backs coach now or something along those lines that really made me raise my eyes. I'll have to go back and find the exact quote on that.
I'll say this is whenever Colbert took somebody to go with, it was Terrell Austin. It wasn't Tom Bradley. Bradley should have at Penn State and Miami, I think, but Austin made the shift with Kevin Colbert, which says something, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and boy, it'll be interesting to see if he's able to develop some of these. Look, my thoughts on Lane is along the lines with Alex. There was a lot of decent things on tape with him. He is long. He does have the ball skills, but he's once again he's converted wide receiver, but he's played corner a few years now. So, but with that said, I think what it was McShay says, well, this is a guy that could come out of the chute as being made potentially your number 3 guy. I think that's a little bit strong wishful thinking right there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's best to hopefully sit and develop him for one season.
Right. If the longer you can keep him off the field during his rookie season, I think the better for him, and maybe perhaps a better chance that he has moving forward there. But you have we'll wait and see when it, like you said with the corners and the Steelers. Man, it hasn't been great over the years. Mark Alt writes in, so in talking about tight ends, and I haven't heard mention of Christian Scotland Williamson. Alex just mentioned Scotty a little bit ago. His size alone should make him a great blocker, and hopefully he has picked up the rest of the game. Maybe he will be our 4th tight end. My age will be, a lot of people have been commenting on their age and all, so we got some old farts like me still listening to the show. They haven't come the way of the dinosaur just yet. Mark actually says he'll be 58 in June. So God bless you. How was it? You grew up like I did. We burned our feet on the earth when it was still cooling there. Also, thanks for mentioning Cyrus Tuatelli. Thank God he put the Mark. God bless you for putting the phonetic spelling in there. I look forward to seeing where he lands. As always, you guys rock. Cyrus Tuatelli is the guy somebody told us to keep an eye on, right?
Yeah, who was that? I'm trying to remember who that was. Was it a Denmark kid?
Maybe it was. No. I don't know. It came from an email, right?
I can barely remember. I remember the name. I don't remember the context, to be perfectly honest.
All right. Thanks for writing in, Mark. Let's see. What else do we have?
Well, he was asking about Scotty. And I mean, I wouldn't count on it. I think he's going to be used as the exempt player, as the practice squad guy. Yes, he's big, but being big doesn't necessarily make you a good blocker. He's such a big guy. You have to understand how leverage works when you're 6. Any big tight end in general is going to struggle with leverage, but a guy coming over, with a limited football background, understanding his leverage and how to get low and drive through and unlock your hips is going to be tough. And this is a guy that looked really struggled in camp last year, which wasn't a surprise, and we'll see how that jump is year 1 to year 2. You would think that you'll see a noticeable improvement. You should see a noticeable improvement from year 1 to year 2 now that he's been around football and immersed in the sport and with the Steelers for an entire season, but there's still a long ways to go. He's going to have to prove a lot. I mean, the dude did very little as a blocker and almost even less as a receiver last year.
All right, Adam Bendis writes in, Dear Dave and Alex, curious your thoughts on scheme idea, which is now a lost dream. Last season, before the shenanigans with Le'Veon Bell not playing, then into the beginning of the season, I was hoping for the Steelers to employ a wishbone, where both Bell and Connor were on the field. My logic behind this was, although you obviously sacrifice a skill player, say drop wide receiver 3 to put 2 running backs on the field, Bell can spread out and give a portion of what you have and had at receiver. Given the challenging formation for defenses to choose personnel package for, what I really dreamt about, though, was to have a read option with 2 possible running plays. Given their different running styles, defenses would be forced to choose which way to play them. Imagine defense having to decide whether to be patient to pick their holes with Bell or to shoot the holes to get Connor. On top of this, you could obviously have them go either the strong or weak side. What do you think about this? Look, this goes back for the last several years, even back when they had D'Angelo Williams and Le'Veon Bell. So it's nice to think about if you have a wide receiver or a running back, say like Jaylen Samuels, that you could flex out and maybe get a wide receiver. But is it worth? And I'm not going to say you're not going to see it, but it's just going to be few and far between. I mean, it really is. We saw it just happen 5 times maybe during that season with Williams and Bell once Bell returned. It's just not the type of thing. I mean, why take a skilled wide receiver off to have a guy that can give you some snaps at wide receiver? I mean, I get it. I see what you're getting at there. Tough for defenses to defend, maybe to match up against. But even if you did see it, you're just not going to see a lot of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's something we talk about in theory all the time, but in practice, very few teams do it and do it often.
I mean, I know you see some instances where the Patriots with who's the Devlin and.
Well, that's a fullback. I mean, that's a whole.
Yeah, but I mean, Devlin Devlin can catch some passes.
Sure, but I mean, I consider that different than a pony with
right.
2. We're not gonna. That Devlin's a fullback first and foremost.
Right. I mean, look, like I said, you might see it a time or two here and there. It's just not something that you're gonna employ very, very, very often there. Jason Campbell writes in, Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for your work. I'm hoping you'd be willing to give me a practical look at what the 3-5-3 would look like. What is your best guess as to who's lined up where, and does this help explain the avoidance of drafting a safety? Thanks, Jason. P.S. I'm nearly 43 and get almost of Dave's pop culture references. God bless you, Jason.
He's asking what a 3-5-3 would look like?
Yeah, practical look at what a 3-5-3 would look like, I guess, from what the Steelers have on their roster now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of combinations. There's so much uncertainty with how these personnel groups are going to look. There's options, though, which is it's better than not having options. But the 3-5-3, you'd have 2 at left end, Hargrave at nose tackle, Hayward at right defensive end, Watt and Dupree, left and right outside linebacker. The inside linebacker in the middle is an interesting one. I don't know exactly who you'd go with. I mean, again, you want to talk about, obviously you want athleticism and playmakers, but you want to have a defensive signal caller. So is that going to be Mark Barron, Bush, Vince? There's a case to be made for any of those guys. I'll say Barron for right now, that he's a veteran guy, can pick up the system, and is going to be a better athlete than Vince Williams. And then for your defensive back, you're going to have your corners and Hayden and Nelson, Davis and Edmonds. And then that 5th DB for the 3-5-3, it's going to be a safety. It's going to be that big nickel package, and it's probably going to be Marcus Allen. So that'd be Marcus Allen as your 5th defensive back.
At least the way it looks like right now, and to hear the coaches talk, about Marcus Allen at the draft.
Right. I mean, I can't find another name on this roster that fits that spot if they want to go with that 3-5-3.
All right, John Kyer writes in, Hello, Dave and Alex. I started watching tape on some draft prospects like Devin Bush this year, and I felt like I learned a good bit about them that way. My question is, when you guys turn on a tape for a player, what is it that you're looking for? Is there something specific in mind if you're trying to find out with a player, or is it just you are watching generally, finding out more as you go through the tape multiple times? I've been an avid listener to the podcast since I discovered it in 2015. Been a long follower of Steelers Depot ever since. Just want to say thank you for all your hard work on both the show and Steelers Depot as a whole. Also, as you said in the last show, you were curious about the age of your listeners. Got a young buck here, Alex. He's 22. Score one for you kids.
Millennials.
Listen, John, the way I watch tape and the way Alex watches tape on some of these guys is probably going to be 2 different things. I initially, when I turn on the tape, got going through some of these draft prospects is I want to see what they do well. So I'll start with trying to pick out plays that impacted the stat sheet first. I want to see what they did to create these plays, these kind of splash plays, if you will. And then I go from there. I want to find out what they did well first, and I think that's a fair way to do it. Find out what a guy can do as opposed to what he can't do, and then kind of drill down from there. And a lot of these guys, I mean, just, we spend a lot of time watching tape, but when there's so many players to go through, there's just the time factor is you never dig enough into them. And that's why now after the draft is usually the more exciting time for me with some of these players, is because you can spend time and you can go through, well, how exactly did Sutton Smith play against the run? How was Benny Snell's blocking? I mean, there should be kind of a checklist that you go through with each of these guys through a 3-game run initial. You should always try to watch at least maybe 3 games cut-ups of a player when you're trying to evaluate them. But did you pick the 3 best games? I mean, I keep going back to Chris Jones several years ago. I didn't pick 3 good selections of games for him, and my evaluation was way off on him. So, no, look. This continues to be one heck of a learning process for me, and I learned something every new. And I think I told Alex recently is, look, when you're looking at these inside linebackers here, don't concentrate so much on the splash plays that they made. Concentrate more maybe on the plays that went for 1 or 2 yards. That's littered in a guy like Devin Bush's film from the last couple of years there. Those are the plays, him being able to go sideline to sideline that, it didn't show up it showed up as a tackle maybe in the stat sheet there, but it turned a 1st and 10 into a 2nd and 9 or a 2nd and 8. So, as far as wide receivers, how do these guys do after they catch the ball? Are they double catching the football? That's one thing to look for when you look at the receptions of wide receivers there. The amount of separation they had. One thing, you go back and look at Deontay Johnson's tape after the fact, Alex, is, man, incredible footwork after the catch. He can make guys miss, stop on a dime and give you 9 cents change. His footwork at Toledo on his passes much more impressive than a guy that's like, say, James Washington coming out of Oklahoma State. Just little things like that. And would you like to expound on what I just said?
I mean, we have a little different philosophy with it. I look at everything. I'm not looking for just what they do well. I'm just putting on the tape and take notes of whatever I see, good, bad, and the ugly, and whatever trends I see from that is kind of becomes my evaluation. But, I'm watching games. I want to watch from different portions of the season. Like to try to watch early in the year, mid-year, late year, maybe go back to a year prior and kind of see that progression. So maybe if a guy was hurt or a guy that got better as the year went on, I think those are important things to have. But yeah, I mean, I'll write down, who the opponent was. I'll watch the game. I'll write specific plays of what I did well or what I thought the player did well or didn't do well so I can refer back to it later. Then I'll write a game evaluation. I'll do that for several games. Then I'll go back through my notes and see again what trends I have for all the games I watched in my notes and create the evaluation there. But I'm a little different where I'm going to look at everything, and whatever I see is whatever I see. I'm not going to just try to look for, and I know why you do it, and that's totally cool with me, but I'm not going to look for just the good or the bad. I'm just going to see whatever I see and roll with it.
Yeah, and a couple times through, didn't you start just looking in general to me, or that's the way I do, but I always generally like to start with, what did this kid do well first? And look, you can ask, the 3 or 4 or 5 of us that do, deep pre-draft dives on players, and probably going to get a little bit different answer. And look, we're far from perfect on this. We're constantly learning, and I think that's why you got to enter this. Is what did you learn from this year that maybe you could do better on somebody? What made a guy say like David Seals go undrafted? Where was the mistake there? Those kind of things.
Yep, good point.
All right, let me see. Going forward from that, that was John. Let's see. Jeff White writes in, "Hey guys, hope you have been able to catch your breath after a great draft season. Thank you. Starting to. My question is about The troubling depth at tight end. Looking around the league, it seems like Detroit and Denver have some fat to cut at tight end. In Detroit, it looks like Michael Roberts could be available. Injuries have plagued him from producing, but he is a MAC guy out of Toledo and has some good tape coming out. In Denver, behind Noah Fant, it seems probable Jeff Harriman. Look, Jeff Harriman is a good example, and Troy Fumagalli or I think Jake Butt is the other one, might be on the chopping block. Yeah, look, I mean, I think you got well, here's the end of that. Did the Steelers show interest in any of those four guys during the pre-draft process, and can you see them being a fit for Pittsburgh? Didn't they show Hireman?
Hireman was brought in for a visit. Roberts, I know they showed interest in. I don't know if he was in for a visit or they were at his pro day, but there was interest in him, and to some degree. And then the name I threw out the other day, Jason Kroom up in Buffalo. They drafted a tight end. Couple tight ends, I think, actually, and they brought him and Kroom in for a visit coming out of Tennessee a couple of years back. So those are some names to circle.
Jeff, as you can tell, I think tight ends are kind of high on Alex and I's list right now as far as wanting to maybe see a guy with a little bit more blocking ability maybe be added. So those are obviously Hireman is a guy, and obviously Denver and the teams that you mentioned there, Detroit, obviously with Hawkinson and Jesse James, it could be someone out there. And I think the Steelers will be watching that. It would not surprise me between now and the start of the regular season if there is a guy that's not currently on the roster.
Mm-hmm. Agreed, 100%.
Let's see, one more maybe from Christian Perry. If the Steelers had the number one pick in the 2019 draft, who would you take, and who do you think they'd take? I'll start this one off, Alex. I'm trading down. I'm going down to a place where I know that I can get either Devin White or Devin Bush because that was just such a huge need there. And if forced to stay in that position, I don't know. I guess Bosa maybe, but I'm doing my best to fill the perceived need with either Devin White or Devin Bush, and I'm fairly confident I could get me something to move down 3 or 4 spots to get that.
Yeah, if a hypothetical where you're picking first, there's a top quarterback like Kyler Murray, and everyone wants to get Kyler Murray, you're trading down. Even to go back to 3, you're going to pick up a pretty high pick to do that because the team's going to come up to 1 with the competition and knowing what they're getting, a potential franchise quarterback. You're not going to get just a 4th for that. You're going to get something really, really good for that. But yeah, if you had to say, I was asked a question a ton in the pre-draft process. You could go with White or Bush, your favorite guy there, but I would probably end up ultimately agree and say either like Nick Bosa or maybe Josh Allen.
Boy, Josh Allen, I didn't go deep into his tape because obviously I didn't think the Steelers had a shot at him, but he's going to be interesting to watch as a pass rusher.
It's impressive. Where's he at, in Jacksonville? Yeah, he's in Jacksonville.
So, thanks for that question there. All right, Alex, did any late breaking news here or anything else to discuss?
Nope, not that I saw. Just a reminder, we'll be back Friday. We're doing two a week for probably a while now until we get closer to camp maybe.
All right, sounds good. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. And if you would like a 1-year calendar access to SteelersDepot.com without all the ads, you can get one of those for $25 as well by going to SteelersDepot.com and hitting the ad-free button. And until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.